Welcome. Today's module is focused on critical thinking and teaching the growth mindset. And for this module, you need resources 1 and 2 and a lesson plan of your own. If you haven't already done so, take a moment to look over the resources. We know that growth mindset is at the heart of critical thinking. And when students have a growth mindset, they are in a much better position to take advantage of opportunities that you provide them to use complex reasoning and to make new meaning on their own. And so today we're going to look at some ways to teach the growth mindset. So luckily a growth mindset can be taught, and it can be taught in the way that you teach any skills, through modeling, teaching, and reinforcing. But it's also important to keep in mind that to teach the growth mindset, you don't necessarily have to teach standalone lessons. Modeling, teaching, and reinforcing can be embedded into the things that you're already doing. As you work through this module, keep these 3 focus questions in mind. What are some ways I might teach growth mindset? What resources might work best for me and my learners? And how might I embed growth mindset in my lesson plan? Let's start with modeling. You are one of the best examples for students to see the growth mindset in action. Use your personal stories to model growth mindset for students. For example, if you're starting a garden or starting a master's program, let students know about that. This shows students that you're willing to learn and take on new challenges, even if they're difficult for you. Talk about the challenges you face and how you think about them. It's important to let students know that when you face challenges and you've had setbacks or mistakes, that you've been able to use them as a learning opportunity. Another way to model is with think-alouds or metacognition. Metacognitive models are critically important, but they're often overlooked in teaching and learning. An effective metacognitive model includes planning, monitoring, and evaluating. And one way to model your thinking is by asking yourself questions and then answering those questions out loud for students. When doing a metacognitive model for planning, you might use questions like these. What prior knowledge will help me with this task? What should I do first? What skills or strategies should I use? Questions like these may be appropriate for monitoring. How am I doing? What is confusing to me? Am I on the right track? And when you finish your metacognitive model with evaluation, you might use questions like these. How has my thinking changed or not changed over time? What misconceptions did I have that I now understand? What worked well or not so well that I should remember for next time? When you model your thinking out loud for students, you're laying a foundation for critical thinking so that students are able to do thinking independent of the teacher, and then they're able to do things like select their own approach to problems, develop their own plans, recognize and talk about their own misconceptions, and evaluate their solutions. What are some other ideas that you have about modeling a growth mindset? So take a moment and jot down your ideas on resource 1 or dialogue with a partner. So modeling is one way to teach students about mindsets. Another way is to teach lessons about the brain and how it works, or even explicitly teaching students lessons on growth and fixed mindsets. One way to keep the growth mindset discussion going all year long is through using things like children's books, literature, video clips, even research projects and writing assignments that all can illustrate the characteristics of a growth mindset, such as resiliency, perseverance, or grit. These kinds of discussions are going to help students realize that they don't need to be ashamed of setbacks or mistakes. I have shared some lesson ideas with you about ways to teach growth mindset to students. And now it's your turn. Take some time to jot down your own lesson ideas onto resource 1. You may also find the growth mindset teaching resources beneficial when talking about lessons with your colleagues. For new learning to be retained, we know that it must be reinforced. And so reinforcing the growth mindset can be done with the messages that you give to students. So you're going to want to actively look for opportunities to reinforce growth mindset behaviors with messages like these. Adding contrasting in your drawings was challenging for you at first, but you persevered and now you've got it. Notice that effective praise has two critical components. First, it highlights the student effort and it identifies a clear cause and effect relationship between persevering and learning. So essentially, effective praise is more about what students do and less about their personal characteristics. But more often than not, students will make statements